So to me, yes, a group does have to meet all 10 of these before I consider it a cult. And as the only one of us I know of with a degree in organizational psychology to become a cult expert, and the cult baby one of us, I think I have a little bit of a different perspective on the spectrum of cults compared to some other experts. I think some other experts seem to try to make it like, yeah, sure, this is a cult, but it's less bad than this kind of cult. People have especially tried to say this to me because I wrote a book about growing up in the Children of God religious cult, the pedo cult, and then comparing it to going into the cult of the US Army. And people will say to me, well, obviously there's a big difference between the US Army and the Children of God. And you know what? You're right. The US Army has raped and murdered a lot more people than the Children of God. However, I think of it like this. There's a spectrum of group. There's not a different point at which you stop being a normal group and become a cult. There's a spectrum of group, and you're more culty or less culty by how many of these things your group has. Once you get to 10, you're here on the extreme level where we have cult, gang, and terrorist group, and probably army. And now, how extreme you're gonna get is just a matter of time, money, and impunity. Groups like the United States military, the Mormons, and the Children of God, and Scientology have had much time, money, and impunity. Let's throw Alcoholics Anonymous in there as well, which is why they have gotten so extreme. I'm Daniella, scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership. I wrote a book called Uncultured about growing up in these cults. You can get signed copies of critically acclaimed book on that shop, or you can listen to it on Spotify Premium right now. Sorry, coming back to talk about the second part of the question, is it objective or subjective, right? What we call a cult is always going to be subjective. We're always going to argue about the definition, and the word has become heavily loaded. I think when we need to ask what cult actually means, we need to go back before the definition and say, how are we using this? When we say the cult of Rocky Horror Picture Show or the cult of Dionysus, god of wine, right? We are just saying back to the throwback, a special interest or obsession, nothing pejorative. When we say someone's in a cult, we are trying to say that person has come under coercive control. And that's what it means. I think that while it is very subjective, I don't think anyone sits around after a good, non-coercive, non-exploitative group experience and thinks, was I in a cult? Even good cult. When we have a good group experience, good cult doesn't come up. That only comes up when people are trying to say, but can I unhealthily manipulate people and hack personality and get an unhealthy amount of dedication to my cause, but for the good guys? And there's this really good song by Candy Carpenter who does deconstruction music, and it's called Like in a Vampire Novel. And she says, make me a vampire, I promise I'll only eat the bad guys. And that's what I hear whenever I hear people asking me if you can have a good cult. Who made you the decider of what's good? Who made you the god that can go choose to manipulate people? But your cause is the good one.